The following Candidates Forum is presented by the Dearborn Heights League of Women Voters. This program presents the candidates for the 15th Legislative District of Michigan in the election of November 3rd, 1998.
Welcome to the second Candidates Forum on tonight's program. This segment presents candidates for state representative in the 15th District, which serves Dearborn. Prior to this hour, we heard candidates for state senator in the 6th District, which encompasses Dearborn and Dearborn Heights, Allen Park, Garden City, and Inkster. A primary mission of the League of Women Voters is to promote the active and informed participation of citizens in government. Over the years, we have accomplished this mission in a variety of ways, including candidates' forums and issuing voters' guides. The League is a national, nonpartisan organization which encourages informed and active participation of citizens in government and advocacy. It never supports or opposes candidates or political parties. Tonight's forum is in cooperation with the Rotary Club of Dearborn, and we are proud to present this nonpartisan focus on issues together. I am Dearborn Heights League Co-President Eleanor Wright. May I introduce to you now Rotarian John Ecclestone, whose good company program we share tonight.
Thank you, Ellie. Greetings and welcome to the candidates for state representative in the 15th District. Maureen Keane-Doran, the Democratic candidate, Greg Stempfle, the Libertarian candidate, and Gary Woronchak, the Republican candidate. Welcome to you all.
Thank you.
The format we have agreed upon with the candidates is that each will make an opening statement of 1 minute, and then we'll have 1 minute to answer each of the questions. The candidates have drawn straws to begin, and then we will alternate questions between candidates so that each has the opportunity to speak first and to answer each question in rotation.
The Libertarian Party is a party of principle. That is, we do not advocate the initiation of force to achieve political or social goals. That means that I believe everyone should be allowed to live their life as they see fit, as long as they don't infringe upon the rights of others. I believe in freedom for everybody, everywhere, at all times. You will never hear me propose some new law, regulation, or tax to tell you how to live your life. And to prove to you that I'm serious about cutting government, my very first act in office will be to cut my own salary in half. I'd like to thank the League of Women's Voters and the Rotary Club for inviting me here to speak tonight, and I look forward to sharing some of my ideas with you, the voters of Dearborn. Thank you.
Mr. Woronchak.
My name is Gary Woronchak, and I'm the Republican candidate for state representative. My background in Dearborn includes 23 years working at the Dearborn Press and Guide, 16 years as editor. In that position, I had a unique vantage point that gave me a deep understanding of our community, its history, its people, and their concerns. It was also a position of leadership and responsibility within our community and enabled me to develop relationships throughout the city that will help me be an effective representative. But my background in Dearborn goes well beyond being a newspaper editor here. I grew up here, I attended Dearborn schools, and after being raised here, I settled with my own family here. My wife, Vivian, and I own a home near Outer Drive and Military with our daughter, who, like me, attended all Dearborn schools. When time comes to decide where to settle with your family, you have the world to choose from. For me, the choice was easy. Dearborn is my home. This community has given much to me, and I'd like to give something back to Dearborn by serving as your state representative.
Thank you. Ms. Keane-Doran.
Hi, my name is Maureen Keane-Doran. I was born in Dearborn, Michigan, to a blue-collar working family. There were 7 of us that lived in a little 2-bedroom house, 1 bathroom. I went to all the Dearborn schools. I went to Miller, Woodward, Fordson, Henry Ford Community College, and the University of Michigan. I watched my mom and dad struggle to raise us 5 kids on a small salary. My father was a factory worker for Ford Motor Company. He was a union member all his life. And although I'm married to a very prominent businessman, I have continued my desire to have a work ethic, and I have still kept my, I serve people. I've always served people. I work as a flight attendant now, and I have served in the Salvation Army Board. I've served at the city, and I'm very interested in working families and their needs and their problems, and that is my greatest concern, and that's why I'm running.
Thank you. Mr. Ecclestone will now begin with question number 1.
The first question will go to Mr. Stempfle. Mr. Stempfle, as the elected representative from your district, how specifically would you ascertain the will of your constituents on an issue?
As I said, the Libertarian Party is a party of principle, and I will never propose new laws or new regulations that tell citizens of Dearborn what to do with their money, what to do with their lives, and what to do with their time. I will cut as many taxes as I can and give everyone in Dearborn the opportunity to live their life as they want to with their own money.
Thank you. Mr. Woronchak, as the elected representative from your district, how specifically would you ascertain the will of your constituents on an issue?
Well, my background, of course, is in communication, so I think I'll be able to effectively set up communication channels with the people of Dearborn so that they can let me know as best they can how they feel about specific issues. I think you have to use instinct to a degree because you can't take a poll or a vote on every issue, but communications is my background, and I hope to have some sort of office hours. I'll be accessible by phone, by internet, and in person to the people, and we'll be seeking all the input I can get.
Thank you. Ms. Keane-Doran, as the elected representative from your district, how specifically would you ascertain the will of your constituents on an issue?
Well, as you know, my background has been in service to the people for 25 years in the city, and I have listened to people and their problems and their complaints for many years. And I would listen to my constituents, and I would be there, and I will have an open door policy for them, and I will pay a close attention to what my people really want.
Thank you.
Okay.
The second question goes first to Mr. Woronchak. How can local governments get more control over state highways that pass through their communities?
Well, again, communication is the key. Having a good working relationship between levels of government is one way to achieve such things. I have a very good working relationship with the officials in the city of Dearborn, and I'm sure that I would be able to be an advocate for them on issues such as that.
Thank you. Ms. Keane-Doran, how can local governments get more control over state highways that pass through their communities?
Well, I think all along through the years we've had good roads up until now, and we had a very strong mayor, and while I was here, I don't remember having this problem of these potholes and these roads getting out of control. And I don't think we had any more local control then than we do now. Maybe we did, but I think that our local officials better have somebody up at the state that's going to make sure that they get their piece of the pie and that we get our roads fixed first, and that we have a maintenance program that is in effect before these roads get out of hand again.
Thank you. Mr. Stempfle, how can local governments get more control over state highways that pass through their communities?
Local governments are the best way to deal with local issues. I would do what I could to return all power to maintain and control highways to the local level. I would try to give Dearborn control over the county roads, and if Dearborn didn't want to take them, then they could be privatized or they could find other ways to fund them. But I would give Dearborn control of all roads that run through Dearborn.
Thank you.
The next question is for Ms. Keane-Doran. Ms. Keane-Doran, what can the legislature do to expedite a solution to the wastewater management problem as it pertains to the Rouge River watershed?
I'm not sure. I've been looking at all the issues, and I'm not sure what they could do at the state level, but I would sure look into it. Would you repeat the question? You said...
Yes. What can the legislature do to expedite a solution to the wastewater management program as it pertains to the watershed?
The watershed. I'm really not, I don't know that answer, but I'll certainly look into it.
The question then goes to Mr. Stempfle. Mr. Stempfle, what can the legislature do to expedite a solution to the wastewater management program as it pertains to the River Rouge watershed?
Many of the sewers that run through Dearborn also serve outlying communities. I think that we should charge those outlying communities for the use of the sewers that run through our system or our city. A lot of the environmental regulations involved with that are unfunded federal mandates, which are unconstitutional. And if Washington wants us to abide by their mandates, then they should also fund those.
Thank you. Mr. Woronchak, what can the legislature do to expedite a solution to the wastewater management problem as it pertains to the River Rouge watershed?
Well, again, I don't have any specific answers except to say that the environment, and particularly the Rouge River, are very important things to me. I'm hoping that that we can provide the monies needed from a state level, lobby with our federal officials for that money from a federal level, and work with local officials to clear it up. Again, I look forward to looking more into that particular question as well. But the environment is very important to me. It will be one of my priorities.
Thank you.
The next question goes to Mr. Stempfle. How would you, as a legislator, respond to criticisms of affirmative action?
I would not really respond to them because as I said, I would not force people into relationships that they wouldn't want to be in. I will not get involved in the economy of the state. I think business should be allowed to run as they'd like, and people should be allowed to enter contracts as they want to, regardless of race or any other factor. I would abolish all affirmative action programs at the statewide level.
Thank you. Mr. Woronchak?
I also oppose preferential treatment programs, affirmative action programs, because I feel that reversing discrimination doesn't do anything to cure discrimination. I think that people who are best qualified for entrance to our universities, the people who are best qualified for jobs that are available, should get those jobs in university positions based on their abilities. Again, I oppose preferential treatment programs.
Thank you. Ms. Keane-Doran?
I'm for affirmative action in a lot of ways, and that is because as I grew up at City Hall, we used to have a Veterans Preference Act there, where the mayor gave everybody, or the civil service gave everybody 10 points if they were in the service. That was like an affirmative action in my day. And I think that people need a chance, a helping hand. I think their standards have to be the same, but I think affirmative action in a lot of places is good.
Thank you.
Next question goes to Mr. Woronchak. Mr. Woronchak, what difference would it make if Michigan changes the law regarding mandatory school attendance from age 16 to age 18?
What difference will it make if the state changes the mandatory age from 16 to 18?
Correct.
Okay. I don't believe that we can force people to be in school beyond a certain age. And these days, being 16 and 17 is being older than 16 or 17 was 20 years ago or 25 years ago when I was in school. I think that we have to work to reduce the dropout rate, and we have to also provide alternative programs for those people who don't fit into the mainstream school systems. So I don't think I would favor raising that age.
Ms. Keane-Doran, what difference would it make if Michigan changes the law regarding mandatory school attendance from age 16 to age 18?
Well, I think it might help the crime problem and the problems we have today on the streets, the gangs. I think if it was mandatory that these kids stay in school, whether we put them in a school that they fit in, you know, if they were troublemakers, that we have special schools for these type of people. But I think that some of these kids that get out of school at 16 are really troubled, and their whole lives are troubled. So I think it would be a good idea to make it mandatory.
Thank you. Mr. Stempfle, what difference would it make if Michigan changes the law regarding mandatory school attendance from age 16 to 18?
I would also be opposed to this. Schools are not holding cells. If a child or a 17 or 16-year-old does not want to be in school, then enforcing them there, they're just going to be disruptive and cause problems. I would not advocate such a position.
Thank you.
This question goes to Ms. Keane-Doran. What shall we do with children expelled from school?
Well, that's what I was talking about before. I didn't know whether you meant the 18-year-olds were troubled children. But if children are expelled from school, I don't think we should put them back out on the street. I think that there should be some place that educates and keeps these children, you know, I guess I don't want to call it a boot camp, but I think I've certainly seen in my own family where it straightens out young men when they're you're not sure what they want to do and you send them to the Army. They get a new perspective on life. I would think that the kids that are expelled from school should be helped. They shouldn't be left, but they shouldn't be left on the streets.
Thank you. Mr. Stempfle, what shall we do with children expelled from school?
Well, I don't think the state should directly be involved with that to begin with. If a child gets expelled from a public school, then he can always go to a private school. I don't think that's an area that the government should get involved with.
Thank you. Mr. Woronchak, what shall we do with children expelled from school?
I think part of the answer to that question is why were they expelled from school? If they were expelled from school for bringing a weapon to school, for example, and could be a danger, if returned, we have to find definitely an alternative program away from the school, but we can't put these kids out on the street because they are still kids, and they still need guidance. We'll just have more problems if they're out on the street. If they're expelled for other behavioral reasons, maybe a switch to another school would be appropriate in another environment.
Thank you.
Next question goes to Mr. Stempfle. Mr. Stempfle, do you support vouchers or tuition tax credits for K through 12 education?
I definitely support tax credits that would give people more money to send their children to private schools. However, I am opposed to vouchers because the moment that public money touches something has strings attached. And if a private school accepts money from the government, within 15 years there will no longer be a private school system left in this country because it'll come under government control. So I oppose vouchers, but I do support tax credits.
Mr. Woronchak, do you support vouchers or tuition tax credits for K through 12 education?
Tax credits also are a form of public money. I oppose both vouchers and the tax credits. I should point out that it's against our Constitution now to allow public monies to be spent for private schools. And if the people of this district and of the state wanted to take it to a petition drive and put it on the ballot, that would be their prerogative. But I would not want to support anything that I feel would undermine the public school system as we know it. I believe vouchers would.
Thank you. Ms. Keane-Doran, do you support vouchers or tuition tax credits for K through 12 education?
No, I don't. I think I grew up in the public schools here, as I stated before, and I think the majority of our working families' children are in the public schools, and we need to keep our state money in the public schools.
Thank you.
This question goes to Mr. Woronchak. Suicide is not illegal. Aiding someone to commit suicide is illegal. Do you favor the ballot proposal which could make assisted suicide legal with proper safeguards?
I do not support that proposal. I'm against assisted suicide. I am in favor of expanding pain management programs. I believe that that it's a very personal issue, but I don't believe that the government can authorize or regulate the death of someone. So I do oppose that proposal.
Thank you. Ms. Keane-Doran?
I oppose that that issue also.
Want me to read the question again?
Would you?
Suicide is not illegal. Aiding someone to commit suicide is illegal. Do you favor the ballot proposal which could make assisted suicide legal with proper safeguards?
No, I oppose it. I just watched my brother die, and God takes care of those things. I also watched Mayor Hubbard die. It took him 9.5 years, but it was a patient, loving thing to assist, and I don't think anybody should take that away from a person. I think assisted suicide is strictly out of order.
Thank you. Mr. Stempfle? Oh, you did this. You didn't
No,
do this.
can you repeat the question though?
Yes, suicide is not illegal. Aiding someone to commit suicide is illegal. Do you favor the ballot proposal which could make assisted suicide legal with proper safeguards?
I only support the proposal because it gives the citizens of Michigan a choice right now. Right now, that procedure is illegal. The proposal has so many strings attached and creates several government agencies, and I'm opposed to that, but as an interim measure before we completely legalize it, then I will vote for it. Again, I own my own body. I should be allowed to do with it as I choose, and the state should have no say in what I do with it.
Thank you.
Next question to Ms. Keane-Doran. Ms. Keane-Doran, what would you vote to do with the state's budget surplus?
Well, I think my number one thing is education. If we had a surplus budget, I would put it in education. And if there was any left over, I would take it to health care.
Thank you. Let's see, the next person would be Mr. Stempfle. What would you vote to do with the state's budget surplus, sir?
That's a very easy question. I would return it back to the people. It was our money to begin with. The state stole it from us. It belongs to us.
Mr. Woronchak, what would you vote to do with the state's budget surplus?
Well, I hardly think that taxation is a method of theft because it provides us with necessary services in our state. Budget surplus, I believe, should be divided between a rainy day fund and return some of it to the taxpayers, because I do believe that it is our money to a degree, and we should give it back to taxpayers so they can put it in their pockets. But I want to stress that we've enjoyed some very, very good economic times in this decade, and we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that there will be times, as all economies are cyclical, that we will need to have some money to fall back on. So I would split it between returning to taxpayers and a rainy day fund.
Thank you.
Mr. Stempfle, second trimester abortions are legal in Michigan. Would you favor any change in this law?
Did you say they were legal or illegal?
Second trimester abortions are legal.
Okay. As the closer you approach to birth, obviously the fetus has more of a chance to survive. Once you get into the second trimester, then there are cases in which the fetus would be able to survive. I believe aborting a fetus this late in the pregnancy, when it could survive on its own, is wrong. I believe abortion should be legal only during the first trimester.
Thank you. Mr. Woronchak, second trimester abortions are legal in Michigan. Would you favor any change in this law?
I am firmly pro-life, and I oppose abortion, except for in the case of protecting the life of the mother.
Thank you. Ms. Keane-Doran?
I think this is the first time I'm going to agree with Mr. Woronchak. I'm pro-life, and I agree with him.
Thank you.
Second time.
Next question to Mr. Stempfle. Mr. Stempfle, if concealed weapon licenses were more readily available, what effect do you think that would have on crime?
I think crime would drop. Studies show that when people carry concealed weapons, the crime rate is lower. Florida is an excellent example of that. I believe everyone has the right to defend themselves, and if they want to carry a weapon, as long as they don't use it to harm another person, that should be legal.
Mr. Woronchak, if concealed weapons licenses were more readily available, what effect do you think that would have on crime?
I also am aware of the studies that show that crime would fall, because it has fallen in other states that do allow more liberal carrying of concealed weapons. I think we have to be careful in a monitoring process so that people who are criminals, of course they're going to carry them anyway, right? But I favor the loosening of CCW permits availability, and I'm sure that we would see a drop in our crime rate. I probably would prefer to live in a society that didn't need guns, but such is not the case. And if we don't allow people to carry weapons to protect themselves, then only the criminals will carry the weapons.
Thank you. Ms. Keane-Doran, if concealed weapons licenses were more readily available, what effect do you think that would have on crime?
I also think that the crime rate would drop. I don't personally have a gun and really don't want one, but I think that that people who have good background checks and are responsible citizens and want to protect themselves, I think that that it would defer crime.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will conclude our program with 2-minute closing statements from the candidates. And we will begin, let's see, where did we leave off? With,
I'll tell you what, Ellie, why don't
Yeah?
we go to some more questions right now? We still have plenty of time.
oh, do we?
Yes.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I like his suggestion better.
Okay. This goes to Mr. Woronchak. What campaign finance reform will you support if elected?
Well, something that will keep my opponent from raising so much darn money, I'm telling you. I think we are certainly, if you've ever run for office and you've had to wade through all the finance reporting forms, I think you see that, at least on this level, this race, there are close checks on the campaign finances. I think, I'm not so sure more checks are necessary. There are certainly limits that individuals can contribute. I would probably think about reducing the amount of so-called soft money that's available to campaigns. I think that if material of campaign literature is coming to someone's home, they should really know who they're coming from, and they should represent the views of the candidate, not necessarily some outside organization. But by and large, I think we're on the right track.
Ms. Keane-Doran.
Would you repeat the question, please?
Yes. What campaign finance reform will you support if elected?
Well, I think that's going to be one of my first issues up there, to see if we can pass some sort of legislation to reduce the costs of what it takes to run for a campaign. I can remember when we ran Mayor Hubbard's campaigns for less than $1,000 for the whole campaign. And I know Mr. Woronchak is criticizing my fundraising, but I had to go out and raise money to compete. And I spent it all, and I spent it all in Dearborn. I spent it on this cable show. I spent it in the papers. And it took that, and it worked. I'm elected. However, I don't see how the average person with good qualifications could run for this office or any office today. And I would hope that we could reduce that and have everybody just run on their efforts door to door.
Thank you. Mr. Stempfle. What campaign finance reform will you support if elected?
I believe that if the government put a limit on the amount of money you could spend on a campaign, that would be a restriction of free speech. I'm not spending that much money on my campaign, and it's very hard to raise money. However, as I said, I can't force other people to do what I want them to. And as much as I would like people to spend not much money on campaigns, there's nothing I could do about it.
Thank you.
Next question to Ms. Keane-Doran. Ms. Keane-Doran, what concerns about government have citizens expressed to you?
Well, the HMOs have people concerned. They're saying that they can't talk to their own doctors. That's a big concern. Healthcare is a big concern. Also, daycare for the young working families is a concern. And also, a lot of people are taking care of their mothers and fathers at home, disabled people. They need tax credits. They need a break. The working families need a break. And so that's what I hear.
Mr. Stempfle, what concerns about government have citizens expressed to you?
Most people are very concerned about the government, period. The government takes half of our money in taxes. We have more people in jail than any country in the world. People are concerned that the government doesn't represent them anymore, that it represents special interest money. People think the government is too large and too powerful, and a lot of people would like to see a lot of restraints on government power.
Mr. Woronchak, what concerns about government have citizens expressed to you, sir?
Well, they've expressed the wisdom of going into this field to begin with, given the shenanigans in Washington and given the brouhaha around Mr. Feiger. But more seriously, as far as issues, I've been knocking on a lot of doors in Southwest Dearborn. And this isn't really a state issue, but a lot of people have commented to me about the airplane noise, of all things, that years after they changed the flight patterns at Metro Airport, it's still an intolerable situation. I've told them, and I will state here, that I will be an advocate, although it's not necessarily a state issue. I will be an advocate to other levels of the government, to, especially since I live in the flight path, to make sure that that's taken care of.
Thank you. We're going to take a little break now. Watch this public service announcement, and we'll be right back with these candidates.
The League of Women Voters is a national nonpartisan organization established to encourage citizen participation in government. It never supports or opposes any political party or candidate. The statements and opinions of the candidates are presented solely as a public service and in no way are to be construed as an endorsement by the League of Women Voters. The League of Women Voters takes no responsibility for any statements made by the candidates.
At the gateways to cities and towns across the globe, a familiar gear wheel signals. Rotary is here. Living their motto of service above self, more than 1 million Rotarian men and women worldwide support humanitarian work in your community and our world community. Service to you, to the elderly, to the disabled, and the disadvantaged. In every corner of the globe, Rotary means friendship and helping others.
Welcome back to the League of Women Voters Candidates Forum. We're very pleased tonight to have the candidates for state representative from the 15th District with us, those being Ms. Maureen Keane-Doran, the Democratic candidate, Mr. Gregory Stempfle, the Libertarian candidate, and Mr. Gary Woronchak, the Republican candidate. Again, welcome to you all, and we will now continue again with the questioning, and the question will be asked by Mrs. Eleanor Wright.
Mr. Stempfle, would you be willing to further revise the drug lifer law?
Revise it in the sense that I would eliminate it. I think all criminal penalties for drug use and possession should be eliminated. I said before, I own my own body. Whether or not the choices I make are good choices or not, it's my choice. I think all drugs should be legal. That would cut crime in half overnight, and police could then divert their resources to deal with real crime like murder and rape and robbery.
Thank you. Mr. Woronchak, would you be willing to further revise the drug lifer law?
I by no means would agree with his statements and would not be soft on drug offenders or any other offenders. However, the drug lifer law, as it was enacted, I believe history has shown us in the last several years that we haven't caught the big shot drug dealers that it was meant to catch, but in fact we've been catching first-time offenders who have been naively and wrongly involved, and as such, it hasn't achieved its purpose, and we have people who probably could be rehabilitated and be a productive member of society eventually if they didn't spend the rest of their life in jail. So.
Thank you. Ms. Keane-Doran, would you be willing to further revise the drug lifer law?
I think once again I agree with Mr. Woronchak here. From what I understand, I'm really totally against drugs and people who use drugs and sell drugs. However, I'm under the impression that this law was so strong that we've had some people in jail for life that just maybe had gotten caught with just a little bit of drugs in the beginning and they're still in jail. If that's what you're talking about, I think we should look at it again. But I think the drug dealers and the drug sellers need to be locked up.
Thank you.
The next question will go to Mr. Woronchak. Mr. Woronchak, if Michigan's economy is so good, then why must we continue to have shortages of social workers, building inspectors, and nursing home inspectors? Do you feel the state could do more to take care of the situation?
You know, I hesitate to comment on something that I'm not fully versed in because it could come back to bite me, and I don't think I'd like to do that. I think, however, overall, part of the reason that the state economy is so good is that we have streamlined government under the Engler administration over the last 8 years. It's been a phenomenal 1990s decade for us economically, but I'll defer on that question.
Ms. Keane-Doran, if Michigan's economy is so good, then why must we continue to have shortages of social workers, building inspectors, and nursing home workers? Do you feel that the state could do more to take care of the situation?
I absolutely do. I think, start with nursing care. We've had over 1,700 complaints last year about abuse in nursing homes. It's our duty up at the state to take care of nursing homes and to regulate these nursing homes. We have our mother and dads in these nursing homes. We have our grandparents in them. We're going to be in them someday. And I think it's horrible that the nursing homes are a place that we have to worry about good care in. I'm on the board of the Henry Ford Village and have been for the past 5 years. And I watch that like a real watchdog. And I intend to make nursing homes a real program for me to put a lot of interest in. As far as building inspector goes, that's a local issue. I don't know why we're short on, unless you mean building inspectors from the state.
Yes.
And what was your third part of that? The
Social workers.
the social workers. Well, as I go door to door, I hear all these mental health people saying that Governor Engler has just cut everything in mental health. And I think that's your problem. He's cut the wrong things in the wrong places.
Thank you. Mr. Stempfle.
Again, these are issues that could be more local. The state should not get involved with them. The state overregulates and overtaxes these areas, and that is one cause of a shortage. By ending a lot of the regulations and taxes, this could open up those fields to more people and more opportunity.
Thank you.
Mr. Woronchak, this question goes to you. Children currently expelled from school must wait 180 days to reapply for readmission to complete their education. What do you feel the state should do to avoid children being excluded for a year?
Could you repeat the question, please?
Children currently expelled from school must wait 180 days to reapply for readmission to complete their education. What do you feel the state should do to avoid children being excluded for a year?
I believe that's a local control issue. I think that should be left to local school districts. And in fact, in the overall topic of education, I advocate more local control, more empowerment of local boards and administrators and teachers to take care of the education and the discipline in their districts. I don't think the state should be micromanaging their discipline procedures. I do have an exception on that, on the notion of weapons in school, because the safety of our students is a concern that we should be consistent on. But I'll leave the rest of the local boards.
Thank you. Ms. Keane-Doran. Children currently expelled from school must wait 180 days to reapply for readmission to complete their education. What do you feel the state should do to avoid children being excluded for a year?
Well, I also think that local control should make those decisions, but I also think that no child should be out on the street, and they're not saying on the street, but I can't even imagine what a young person that was expelled from school would do for 180 days. I think that if they're going to expel a child from school, they ought to put him somewhere else in some disciplinary place. And if it can't be done by the local government, then we should, at the state, make provisions for this.
Thank you. Mr. Stempfle. Children currently expelled from school must wait 180 days to reapply for readmission to complete their education. What do you feel the state should do to avoid children being excluded for a year?
It seems odd that the state is excluding children from school. I would repeal that law immediately. A child should be allowed to go wherever they would get accepted or would be allowed to go.
Thank you.
Next question to Ms. Keane-Doran. Ms. Keane-Doran, should we be trying to improve teacher standards with the current shortage of teachers?
I think so. If you're saying should we keep our teachers updating themselves all the time?
Yes.
As long as we pay them for their efforts, I don't think they should have to do it on their own. You know, I think teachers, I don't ever think teachers make enough money. I was reading Walter Cronkite's story the other day, and he says when athletes and entertainers make so much more than teachers, it's a sin. So I think they should be current, and I think they should be up as high as they can in the academic standards themselves, but I think we should pay for it, and they shouldn't have to pay out of their own pocket to do it.
Thank you. Mr. Stempfle, do you think we can improve teacher standards with the current shortage of teachers?
This seems to be one topic that all of us agree on. We all believe that all schooling should be brought more to a local level. As a state legislature, I would not want to have anything to do with the state education. That should be left to the Dearborn Heights and every other local school district to deal with education, or to private schools.
Mr. Woronchak?
I think that local boards could do a little experimenting, given the teacher shortage, to bring in people from the community who aren't traditional teachers but have a great deal of life and professional experience to help in the classrooms. For example, you don't have to necessarily have a teaching certificate to teach journalism if you've had 25 years in the business like I have. Of course, I think our teacher standards need to be high. I don't think that we've diminished them all at all, given the even given the shortage of teachers. But I think we can look to some alternatives, like as I suggested, some people with great life experience and professional experience into the classrooms.
Thank you.
Mr. Stempfle, reading exercises that have been provided over the summer at Access for 7 years by state funding has been withdrawn after serving children from the first grade through high school. Do you feel there is validity in the state's funding of this type of program or any other kind of after-school program?
No, I don't. I don't believe that the government should fund, the state government should fund education, period. As I said, it's a local issue, and or a private school issue. Again, all schooling should be local. The state should not get involved.
Thank you. Mr. Woronchak, reading exercises that have been provided over the summer at Access for 7 years by state funding has been cut out after serving children from first grade through high school. Do you feel there is validity in the state's funding of this type of program or any other kind of after-school program?
I think the state should well fund our school districts and let the local school districts determine what sort of after-school programs would be available in the community. I'm not familiar with the one you're discussing, but that would be my opinion on it.
Thank you. Ms. Keane-Doran, reading exercises that have been provided over the summer at Access for 7 years by state funding has been cut out after serving children from first grade through high school. Do you feel there is validity in the state's funding of this type of programming or any other kind of after-school program?
I think so. I think that anywhere children need to be taught to read and where they need the extra help, we should get it, either from the state or the local government. But I think if we do not educate the children in our town, at least to the point where they can read good, well, I think we've really missed something here.
Thank you.
Let's see, next question to Mr. Woronchak. Mr. Woronchak, what do you feel should be the legal approach to very young offenders accused of serious crimes such as murder?
By very young, I assume you mean
7 or 8.
single digits.
Yes.
Boy, that's a tough one. I don't know. I hope that we can come to terms on something like that. I believe that I can't believe that they'd necessarily be responsible for their actions at that age, and to sentence them to a lifetime in prison just doesn't seem right. I do believe that youthful offenders, as in the teenage years, when they commit such crimes, that they should be tried as adults. I don't have the answer to the 7- and 8-year-old. Hopefully that will be something we won't have to deal with much. It's a very sad thing when it happens.
Ms. Keane-Doran, what do you feel should be the legal approach to very young offenders accused of serious crimes such as murder?
Well, I don't know. I just think that if somebody really murders somebody else, that I don't know at what age, you know, 7 is a young age, but we just saw it last month where a 7 and an 8-year-old were accused of something, and then they said they weren't really responsible for it. But I guess I'm real tough. I think that if you kill somebody, you actually murder somebody, that you have to pay in some way. And I don't know if I'd give them life, but I certainly would put them in a reform school for a long time, or do something drastic so that they'd never do it again.
Thank you. Mr. Stempfle, what do you feel should be the legal approach to very young offenders accused of serious crimes such as murder?
Again, this is a really difficult issue, and I don't think there is a firm answer to this. Maybe some sort of youth home they could be sent to, but a 7-year-old doesn't really understand the concept of murder and death, and I would be very hesitant to sentence that person to an adult prison for a long sentence. Again, I mean, it's a very difficult issue, and there's a lot of discretion involved. I think that passing laws on that would be risky at this point in time.
Thank you.
The next question goes to Ms. Keane-Doran. The state requires grocery stores to be inspected at least once a year. Do you feel there is too much leeway in time allotted to stores with poor ratings to improve their food sanitation and handling procedures?
Well, I think yes. I think just going door to door last week, I had a lady complain about one of our grocery stores right here in Dearborn, and she said it's just filthy and that it's awful and that somebody should look at it. And I think that the inspection on stores should be like the nursing homes. They need to look at them at least every month and check them for their cleanliness. And just last week I read where there's those black widow spiders being carried in grapes. I mean, we do need some regulations in the grocery stores.
Thank you. Mr. Stempfle. The state requires grocery stores to be inspected at least once a year. Do you feel there is too much leeway in time allotted to stores with poor ratings to improve their food sanitation and handling procedures?
Well, if I went to a grocery store that was filthy and had insects in it, I wouldn't go there again. Stores are responsible to the needs of their customers, and if a store is unsanitary and unfilthy, then they will lose business. They have an incentive to keep it clean. In terms of legal action, I don't think that's an area that the government should get involved with. There are other organizations out there that can certify that.
Thank you. Mr. Woronchak, the state requires grocery stores to be inspected at least once a year. Do you feel there is too much leeway in time allotted to stores with poor ratings to improve their food sanitation and handling procedures?
I was not aware that they only inspected them once a year, and especially if you get poor marks for cleanliness or being unsanitary, I think we should check back if we don't already, which we may. I don't know, but we should certainly check back more frequently than once a year. I disagree with Mr. Stempfle in that I don't believe it's solely a marketplace issue, because there are many areas where there might be just one store in the area. There might be a lot of seniors who don't have access to transportation, or it might be maybe a neighborhood in Detroit where there just aren't any other alternatives. So we can't just let the marketplace decide and say if your store is dirty, then shop somewhere else. I think we do have to protect consumers to that degree.
Thank you.
Next question to Mr. Stempfle. Mr. Stempfle, what can be done to improve our schools? And as a legislator, what would you do to implement changes?
As I said, schooling should be a local issue and a private school issue. As a state legislature, I would return all control to local school districts and to private schools. I wouldn't get involved.
Mr. Woronchak.
Education is very important. I went to Dearborn schools and decided to send my daughter to Dearborn schools because it's a great school system. I like to see it kept that way and to improve. I think some changes I would, or at least my philosophy on education, is local empowerment, as I had said earlier. I believe that local boards know best on how to educate their children. Now, I think that on a state level we're doing a better job of funding since Proposal A was passed. So we can leave the educating to the educators, and they don't have to run millage election campaigns. But as far as changes, more empowerment, less state intervention, less intrusion into the local process.
Ms. Keane-Doran.
More teachers would be good, and smaller class sizes would be good. Zero tolerance on guns and drugs and gangs. And I also went to all the public schools. I want them to be safe and not have the parents, the young working families, that have to worry about where their children is at and if they're safe.
Thank you.
This question goes to Mr. Woronchak. What are some of the state of Michigan's most urgent environmental concerns at this time, and how do you propose that we solve them?
Well, I think one of the solutions is right in front of us on the ballot in November, the Clean Michigan Initiative, a $675 million bond issue that will be devoted to the environment and to cleanups. And I'm happy to say that that a large portion of that will be devoted to brownfield cleanups, so we will be able to revitalize and recycle our existing lands for urban development. But there's also a lot of money in there for our natural resources and our up north areas that we enjoy so much. Also, this is certainly a bipartisan effort, so I think that one of the solutions to our environmental problems is right in front of us on the ballot, and both sides of the political aisle do support it, so that's my answer.
Ms. Keane-Doran, we have very little time. If you could give it to us.
I just think that our water is very important to keep clean, and that we keep an absolute eye on the water, clean air, and the wetlands. We have to really protect our wetlands all the time because people are encroaching on them.
Thank you. Mr. Stempfle?
Polluters should pay. That's the bottom line. If I pollute on your property, that is a trespass, and I should be liable for those damages.
Thank you. We have now concluded our questioning, and we will each of you will have a 2-minute closing statement, beginning right now with, where do we leave off? Mr. Woronchak.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Dearborn Rotary and the League of Women Voters for having us here today to express our views on the issues. This is a very important election. It will take us to the gateway of the next century. And with term limits, almost 2/3 of the state representatives elected this year will be new to the legislature. That's why it's critical to elect representatives with community background, leadership experience, and skills to deal with current issues, new technologies, and modern problems. I have the personal, professional, and community background to be an effective representative for Dearborn. I have communication skills developed in 25 years in the newspaper industry that will help me set up lines of communication between you and state government, with me as a connecting point. But most importantly, I have a deep desire to serve you. Service will be the most important aspect of my job. I will be at your doorstep, at your school board meetings, and at your neighborhood association meetings so that you can let me know how I can serve you. With all due respect, I cannot avoid mentioning my opponent's record, and I do mean with all due respect because I have a high regard for her. 9 years have passed since she served one term on the city council. She had a very adversarial relationship with our mayor, to the point that Mayor Guido conducted a campaign to get rid of what was considered Dearborn's worst city council ever. Voters agreed with the mayor, and she was not reelected to the council. Again, with all due respect,
I think maybe we better stop right there. Ms. Keane-Doran?
I'd just like to tell the voters of Dearborn that elected me in the primary. I'd like to thank them, and I hope they'll do it again in the finals here. And I just wanted to remind them that I have been out of city government for the last 9 years, but I haven't been out of Dearborn. And my love for Dearborn shows, my loyalty for Dearborn shows, and I want the working families out there to know that I came from a working family. I'm still in a working family. My husband was a very hard worker in his young days too. My greatest concerns are for the working family of this town and for the seniors. But my years on the city council, 4 years as mayor pro tem, 25 years with Mayor Hubbard. Mr. Woronchak thinks that that doesn't count. Well, excuse me. I think that this is not a training ground for someone who hasn't been an elected official. We need to know, you need to have someone up there who can get your share of the pie for Dearborn, and I'm the person. And it doesn't matter whether the mayor and I didn't get along. I certainly will work with him on any issue that we have at the state. Thank you.
Mr. Stempfle.
Americans are sick and tired of taxes, being told how to live their life, being told what to do with their time. We're sick and tired of failed policies of Democrats and Republicans. I said before, I will never propose some new law, regulation, or tax to tell you how to live your life. I want to give you the opportunity to live your life and spend your money as you wish. I said before, my very first act in public office will be to cut my own salary in half. That proves to you that I'm serious about freedom. If you want safe streets, if you want streets without potholes, if you want to keep your own money, you finally have a choice to make this year. Vote for myself, Greg Stempfle, for state representative. Vote Libertarian. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thanks to all of our candidates for
Thank
being
you.
with us tonight. We certainly appreciate it. The polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. on November the 3rd. We hope that all of our citizens will vote and that they will really come out and vote in large numbers at this particular time. It's very important. The League also extends its thanks once again to the Rotary for our co-host tonight and Time Warner Cable for studio and program time. A special thanks to John Ecclestone, my co-host, who is both a Rotarian and a League member, and to the citizens of Dearborn who have joined us from their family rooms. The League will be distributing voter guides for all local political offices in early October. These include brief biographical material as well as answers by candidates to questions that have been posed by the League. Look for these at your city hall, your libraries, your civic and senior centers. And now, John, would you like to close the program?
Thank you, Ellie. This program will be shown again on each Wednesday in October, beginning with the state Senate program and then concluding with the state representative program you have just watched. The dates are October 7th, 14th, 21st, and 28th on Time Warner Channel 8 from 7:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. This League of Women Voters Candidates Forum has been produced as a community service by Dearborn Rotary, and we are proud to bring this program to you. Thank you, and good night.
Well, as you're all aware, Alan has announced he's HIV positive.